joined now by Jason Stein of our Madison Bureau to talk about what's happening in our state capitol. So, Jason, a few weeks ago, Governor Walker introduced his budget, but not a lot of action on that so far, yet there's a lot happening at the Capitol. Give us an update on what's been being worked on this week.
Well, after a couple of slow months at the Capitol, things are starting to pick up a little bit. This week, the lawmakers passed legislation to make youth counselors or prison guards in juvenile prisons in the state mandatory reporters for child abuse. This follows a lot of reporting by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and my colleague Patrick Marley on alleged abuses at Lincoln Hills, the state's prison for youth north of Wausau. So that legislation is moving forward. There's been a number of other bills, including a couple dealing with patients with difficult health issues. One is a CBD oil bill to make it easier for families that have children with severe seizures to get a product derived from marijuana that some people say can help curb those seizures. There's also a right to try legislation, which makes it easier for terminally ill patients to get access to experimental treatments that might offer them, their final hope at a cure.
All right, let's go back a little bit on the Lincoln Hills measure. That's the first piece of, we presume, other changes in the wake of all of this reporting. But why wouldn't that have been a requirement in the past? It seems obvious, right? If you're in charge of taking care of the inmates and there's someone who's being abused, wouldn't one have generally expected that to be a requirement to report it to authorities?
Well, we certainly require that of teachers and social workers and other people whose jobs routinely bring them into contact with minors, that it is a requirement that they report instances of abuse and neglect, and can be criminal penalties involved if they fail to do that. The legislature has really been in a holding pattern over Lincoln Hills for the past, more than a year, as they wait for a criminal investigation that is now run by the FBI to finish in that institution. But now they're finally moving forward, in the absence of criminal charges or a definitive end to that investigation. They're starting to move forward, at least with the small steps on that institution.
All right. Another story this week was a report on highway costs, specifically for Interstate 39 in the Madison area, and that was something like 2.5 times more than what lawmakers originally anticipated when it was approved. Well, what is that? It sort of underlines the challenge facing lawmakers. Is there any hope or sign of progress to resolve how to tackle some of these road funding issues?
Right. Well, first, again, the news this week was that the I-3990 project, the widening of that interstate from the Illinois state line up to Madison, has been really substantially underestimated, the cost of that, and that is alarming for lawmakers and I think the public in general, given that the state already has a lot of funding challenges in our roads fund, and then to see that this major project has been essentially lowballed, is another reminder that the project, or that the problem, could be even worse than we previously thought. Now, in terms of the challenge at the Capitol, Republicans have not agreed on whether or not to raise gas taxes or vehicle fees or some other form of revenue to help pay for this shortfall that we have in the road fund, in this budget and many years to come. It's still unclear what will happen with that. I mean, I think the most likely scenario seems to be that, not that Republicans raise some new form of revenue, but that they take some costs or some revenue that's currently going into schools and healthcare, and that they earmark that for roads going forward.
All right, and that'll be resolved in part, I'm sure, when the state budget does get addressed and acted on. Tell us a little bit briefly what's ahead for that. When do you expect to have some of the first hearings get started?
Sure. Well, Governor Scott Walker introduced his budget bill last month. The first thing that always happens is the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, which is sort of our version of a nonpartisan congressional budget office that advises lawmakers of both parties. That budget office had just yesterday released their analysis of Scott Walker's budget. It's a 500 or 600 page document. Lawmakers will take a little bit of time and digest that, see what the budget actually does, and then there will be hearings scheduled for the Budget Committee, the Joint Finance Committee, all around the state. Lawmakers will take input from citizens and special interests about what's in the budget, and then probably late April or May, you will see lawmakers start to amend the budget, rewrite it, and then in June, you'll see it go to the floor of both houses. At least that's how it typically works out.